but we set up Doge.
Yes.
How much do you think we can rip out of this wasted $6.5 trillion Harris-Biden budget?
Well, I think we can do at least $2 trillion.
That's all of our discretionary spending, by the way. The entirety of our discretionary budget. So when they talk about the budget, that's all of it. He just said we were going to make it zero. But okay. What is the discretionary budget? It's all the things that we talk about when we talk about the budget. And then there's things called non-discretionary, which is stuff that the United States has to pay. We are like promised to pay. So if you talk about like, usually when they talk about making the budget every year, or it's yearly, right? Quarterly? Yearly? I think it's yearly. When they talk about the budget, they're talking about our discretionary spending. So for instance, when people say like, oh, the military budget is half of our spending or whatever, they mean half of our discretionary spending. Because you see it's 18% of our total spending. Is it possible they'll look to cut non-discretionary spending? You can't cut, it's called non-discretionary. You have no discretion over it. So you can't cut non-discretionary spending. It's promised already. You'd have to start breaking laws or violating agreements to do it. The Congressional Budget Office. Okay, this is a cute chart. So you can see of our $6.1 trillion right here, the discretionary budget is 1.7 trillion. The mandatory spending is 3.8, and then 700 billion is interest. So when when Elon Musk says we're going to cut $2 trillion from the budget, I don't know what the f he's talking about. So what's in non-discretionary spending? I think the biggest chunks are things like Social Security and Medicare. I think those are your biggest chunks. Where's our non-discretionary spending? So your mandatory spending is $3.8 trillion. This is for fiscal year 2023. Of your 3.8 trillion, 1.56 trillion is going to Medicare and Medicaid, and then 1.3 trillion is going to Social Security. So here's this is like 2.9 trillion right here, which is the majority of your non-discretionary spending. And then other things you've got are income security programs, federal civilian and military retirement benefits, certain veterans programs, and then 383 billion for other programs. Aren't they planning to cut the $2 trillion by mass firing federal employees? Since federal wages are part of the mandatory budget, what's stopping them from trying that? It just doesn't, there's just not enough money to cut there. People just super, anytime somebody's going to go line by line through the fucking tax code to do things, you're talking about like from $1 trillion, you'll save like a couple billion maybe. Like nobody, but the problem is nobody really has any concept of like all the numbers. Nobody really has like any concept of when you're talking about these levels of dollars, nobody knows. Like if I tell you last year, the United States government wasted $10 billion in money, like, is that a lot? I don't know, 10 billion seems like a lot of money, $10 billion. But like, what is that compared to 1 trillion or 10 trillion or 5 trillion or 100 billion? Like these are hard numbers to conceptualize. So they'll throw around big numbers, but like, is it really helping if we were to go through and cut this? Like what programs would even be funded? Like, it's just, yeah. You said they wouldn't be able to break the law and cut non-discretionary spending. So does that mean the Supreme Court would block them from slashing if they tried, or Congress who would stop? I imagine the Supreme Court would stop them. And then I think Congress would have to pass laws, I think, to change the allocation for the money.
Politicians, according to the New York Times, Musk's companies were promised $3 billion across nearly 100 different government contracts last year alone, facing 17 different federal agencies. According to The Economist, 10% of Musk's personal fortune is derived from contracts and freebies from the US government. His new role and his political connections could allow him to meddle with regulations, tariffs, and procurement programs, advantaging his companies and harming his competitors.
Like, it sounds so stupid to like even say anything. It feels dumb, and this is why it's not satisfying when I said like, God, I wish these things would happen to conservatives. So we could show them how hypocritical they are. But like the idea that you would put a current billionaire, no, I'm sorry, my bad. Elon Musk is not just a billionaire, the richest man in the world, in charge, a guy whose businesses thrive off of government contracts, in charge of determining where the government should spend its money in any capacity. Like, that is such an obvious, outwardly corrupt, horrible, I'll be more generous, I guess, or I'll be super charitable. Instead of calling it corrupt, at the very least, we say there's a massive, obvious conflict of interest. Like, why would you ever think this is a good idea? Like, it's such an obviously, insanely crazy conflict of interest. How could, like, this is like oligarchical, literally. Here, this is like the #1 way to cut through bullshit on this. When somebody says, I think I tweeted this out earlier on the vaccine thing. When somebody says, we give our kids way too many vaccines, okay? Or we just spend way too much money, we need to do budget cuts. Then you say, okay, that's fair. Which vaccines would you cut? There's no answer ever. Oh, you want to cut government spending? Okay, cool. What departments would you cut from? What programs are you going to cut? How much money are you going to save? What are you looking to cut? Like, when you just give this as a blanket, like, whatever thing, it's so stupid and it's so meaningless. And it's it's such an empty fucking platitude. Like, just give me one example of a vaccine that you think we don't need, or one example of a government expenditure that you think is not necessary. Because when they started giving government expenditures, was it Lankford that was doing it? These expenditures were like $60,000. Was this what we watched?
The good folks of Oklahoma helped pay for a wine pedestrian trail.
Like this Ghana study, these studies on like helmets and shit, right? The waste here was, or he says it's waste, but also that's true too. They're not even like talking about government waste also, which is concerning because I thought it was waste we're getting rid of. They're talking about getting rid of government programs, like things that they're actually funding. But then it's like the waste here is $268,000. Like, let's assume that our budget is $1 trillion, right? 1 trillion. Let me try to make this like into numbers that like make sense. So we're talking about $1 trillion, and we want to cut $300,000 in spending. That would be like looking at, fuck it, just go all the way down to, this would be like, did I do this conversion right? This would be like saving $3 out of $10 million. Did I miss a cut here? Like, this is the type of savings that we're talking about. My mom just said, well, we should pull back on how many we give. I don't know. I have no idea how to counter the vibes, because all of this is vibes. They don't understand the money that they're cut. The problem is that like, it's just so strange that like, because nobody knows about any finance or government or economics or anything, like imagine I walk into a hospital and I'm looking at some doctors and I'm like, this guy has a lot of pints of blood. I think he needs less. And it's like, what do you mean? It's like, I don't know. There's like less blood. We should have like less blood in all the people. Like just less. We need to take some. And then our blood banks won't have to give so much. Just like, it's just like, what the fuck are you saying? What the fuck are you even talking about? We need to have less of it. Like, we need to have less money going towards, you don't even know what the programs are. You don't know what the money is spent on. You don't know how we raised the money. You don't know how we brought, like, you don't know any factor of this, but you have a really, really strong opinion that we need to cut from it for some reason. Like, I wonder if Destiny is claiming there isn't significant government waste. Not that I'm aware of that's like ultra significant. I don't know. Is there? Tell me. You can feel free to let me know. Should we not let them do research and find potential waste though? What's the hurt as I see it? We already have like Government of Accountability Office. We already have watchdogs for a lot of the federal agencies. We already have the congressional, we already have people that do all this stuff. Like we don't need another like the funny thing is what they're doing is exactly what does lead to like waste, is like just making redundant faux agencies. It's not even a real agency to like go and look, like it's stupid. It's a waste of time. I mean, to be fair, for the Pentagon to continue to fail audits, we don't really know what is being spent on or wasted on. Yeah, sure, but that has to do with like how the Pentagon is accounting for money and projects that it doesn't think it should give insight to. Like it's not like we can argue that the Pentagon should have more transparency to certain budget office or whatever. That's fine, but it's not like that. But like Cenk was saying in that one thing, the money's not just wasted. People say, "Oh, it's a black hole. We don't know where any of it goes. It's completely wasted. It's all government." Like, that's probably not, but okay. Destiny has too much faith into the corruption of the public sector. That's great, my dude. I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're either retarded, you either don't have a real job, or you're just like, turn the blinders on. But like, my dude, like, turn away from the government and go talk to anybody that works for any major corporation and ask them, hey, do you think that your major corporation that you work for 100% efficiently allocates all the resources? And see what the kind of answers you get. Like, talk to somebody that actually works a real job. Everybody's going to say like, oh no, like we have so much waste in management. Oh my God, we like allocate budgets for projects that are retarded, like expenditures of money. Like, oh my God, we have all these stupid things in the office that like we don't need. Like people, bro, everybody has like some level of waste or corruption or whatever. Like it happens. It's not good. Like we don't want, but there's like some level that exists in all places. This idea that like huge fucking, huge corporations run like in clockwork and they're so efficient and they're so there's no waste or corruption. It's so stupid. It's such a dumb, naive, stupid idea. The only difference is, at least for public office, you can hold them accountable by voting them out. In a private company, I mean, unless they're committing a crime, you kick rocks. Yeah, but what happens to corps if they keep wasting? LOL, they close down, no? Listen, my dude, if that's what you think, then you know what? I don't want to even say anything because I envy the world that you're allowed to live in, okay? Good for you. Does the executive have the power to fund non-government agencies like this? Probably not. I don't even know if he can pay them. He probably wouldn't be able to. But my guess is they would take no salary. That's why Elon is asking for people with no salary. And him and Vivek probably aren't taking his salary, right? That's another thing too. Nobody should be taken seriously. Here, this is a hard line, hard rule. Nobody should be taken seriously about government spending if they don't want to fully fund the IRS. If you don't want to fully fund the IRS, then literally you should be ignored on every single point that you have. Every single thing you say should be completely thrown out the window. You have nothing of value to add to the conversation if you don't even want to fully enforce the regulations that are on the books. What a waste of oxygen you are.
Firm, which is cheap to run, as every hospital employee or employee at a government contractor who spots government fraud taking place can report it and earn sometimes massive fraud.
Why IRS? Because the IRS literally makes money. We don't even have enough IRS agents to go after all of the tax that's owed to the federal government. Like, at the very least, if we have laws about how taxes ought to be paid, then people should be paying them. But we don't even have enough to. We don't even have enough people in the IRS to go after it.